All right, so I think I'm going to get started here. Let me know if you have any issues hearing me or seeing my screen or anything like that. You can always put it in the chat or unmute yourself and let me know. And you can always unmute yourself and ask any questions if you have any. So my name is Josh Fire. I'm a librarian here at the Merrick Library. And I decided that for this tech talk, we would talk about book recommendations. So that's the phrase that I used, but the real thing we're talking about is reader's advisory, which is a phrase I thought maybe people weren't familiar with, so I didn't want to confuse people. But reader's advisory is essentially the service that librarians have been doing for a long time of recommending books to people. So it's the idea of, asking people what they're interested in and then finding similar books for them that they'll enjoy. Um, and of course, some people are naturally just good at that. A lot of librarians read a lot, so it comes very naturally to them. For some people, they might not, be as familiar with a certain genre, or they might not read modern fiction as much as they read classics, stuff like that. So, we've learned to be able to use other resources to better guide people to finding their books. So I thought that I'd be able to share some of the ways that we look at how to find books for people, so that you can use those resources yourself, if you'd like to, in order to find more books. So the first thing is suggesting read-alikes and lists, right? So read-alikes is the idea of, okay, well, what book did you like? You liked this specific title. Here are other books like it. Or you like this specific author, you like Stephen King. Here's a list of other authors that are similar to Stephen King. And this is really the main resource that we use at the library, which is called NoveList. Okay, so I hope you can still see my screen. I'm at the library website now. Again, let me know if there's any issues with that. And so if you go to our website and you go to digital library, over here under ebooks and audiobooks, you have this NoveList, book recommendations. So you click on that, and in order to get in, you need your library card. If you're not in the building, if you're in the building, it works automatically. So let me put mine in because I'm working from home today. And so this is what it looks like. And so there's a lot of information in this resource. This is honestly probably the best one that I use as a librarian, and I'm most likely to look for if I'm unsure and I want to help someone out. So there's a lot of ways you can go about this. If you look on the left here, there's lots of recommended reads lists, right? So if you go to best of 2020 fiction, it's got all sorts of things. Say you are a fantasy novel reader, click on best fantasy of 2020. And if it takes a second, but it should get there. And so this is the list. So this is going to give you a lot of recommended reads based on this list. Now, let's say you take this title. Say somebody just read Piranesi and really liked this book. So this is going to give the NoveList is going to give you a lot of information about it, right? So you have the description, the book appeal terms, the genre, the characters, all this stuff. It's going to give you reviews from a bunch of different places. But the thing that you're really looking for that I find helpful is here on the right, the read-alikes. So if you view all, this is the read-alikes for Piranesi. So, this is what Piranesi is. And then the read-alikes, it tells you the reason why it thinks that this is a similar kind of book. And it gives you a bunch of, usually about 9 or 10 recommendations. I found this to be a really good way if you you liked a specific book and you want something that's similar to it, this is probably the best thing to do. But then say that is for a title read-alike. But then say you want a similar author. So I mentioned, say, Stephen King, right? Say you really like Stephen King. you can go here. And here on the right, it's going to offer the author read-alikes. So if you like Stephen King, I mean, Richard Bachman is actually the pseudonym of Stephen King, so it's kind of funny that they would put that there, but you might not know that. Dean Koontz, Neil Gaiman, Joe Hill, who's the son. So these are kind of some other authors that are similar horror-like authors. And again, it gives you the reason why it thinks you might be interested in this. Okay, so I mean, that's essentially the basics of this. And you can obviously search by the title, author, series. I usually just look up through keyword, like I just did Stephen King in there and I found it. The recommended reading list, you have adult, you also have teen, younger ages as well. And again, you have these lists so that NoveList staff favorites. So these are, I guess, people who work there. You could have their lists. And it basically will just come up with a bunch of different lists. So I find that to be really helpful. Again, here on the they have some like terms too. You're in the mood for books that are leisurely paced and atmospheric, lyrical and mystical. You can kind of search for terms of descriptions of the books, and it'll find that. You can browse the genres. It has some award-winning lists. Say you like Westerns, click on that, and it's going to give you some more information about Westerns, some of the lists about Westerns, genre essentials, authors that are, you're gonna like, award winners in that genre. So there's really a lot here, and I really like browsing through this and trying to find stuff. All right. So does anybody have any other questions about NoveList? If not, I'll just keep going here. And so the second thing I just wanted to mention is Hoopla. Now, Hoopla is not a book recommendation engine in the same way that NoveList is. But what's kind of interesting about it is, in a way, you can use it in the same, to find things that you're interested in. So if you go to the browse button and say you want to browse ebooks, you can go to categories, and then you can look through top categories, all categories. So since there are so many categories, you can kind of use that as a way, mystery and thriller, say, you could go look and it's going to have recommendations. So it's not quite as in your face, but you can kind of look that way. Beach reads, new in mystery and thriller. So here's what it's saying. Here's 32 titles that it's saying are kind of like beach reads, but mystery and thriller. Black History Month 2020. Here's some that they recommended. What else do they have here? Book club recommendations, books, books that take you places. What do they have here? Books for personal growth. So they have that, and you can do that by ebook. You can also just do that by audiobooks as well. Again, it has, so it's here. Instead of searching by recommended, by popular, I'm searching by categories. Here are the top categories. So they have the bonus borrows, which is those don't cost, they don't cost you against your monthly borrows. So they're kind of like extras that you can get for free. But then, say sci-fi and fantasy, here's sci-fi and fantasy audiobooks. So I just thought I'd mention that because that is one way you can, if you're just looking for something in a genre that's, going to help you out. It's not the same as read-alikes necessarily. Although I think Yeah. Sometimes it might actually give you sort of similar books as a recommendation. And then there's also the things up here that they're promoting. So, for example, fascinating nonfiction they have as a category that they're trying to advertise right now. Okay, so let's moving on. So the other thing is book reviews and best of lists. So this is really another place where, as a librarian, I'm looking to find out what's coming out. So one of the, kind of most famous ones is the New York Times book review. So obviously you have to be kind of a subscriber to get the full access to it, but just to kind of give you a sense, this usually comes in the Sunday paper, but you could just go on the website and look it up. And it's pretty well respected for their book opinions. And then they often have, they might have articles like this, The Essential Octavia Butler. They also have this, which often comes out, this like 12 new books we recommend this week. So that's one way to kind of keep up with what's going on. And then they're, usually, they're having these full length kind of book reviews that, often if it's like a nonfiction book, it's going to help really give you a good sense. It's going to kind of give you an overview of what it's talking about. And, if it's a fiction book, it's going to give you their opinion. And usually it's written by someone who is an author or sort of an intellectual, someone who's kind of famous in a way or not. So it's usually pretty well written. So I thought I'd mention that. And then the Washington Post has also kind of been bulking up their book section of their newspaper. And so they also kind of have similar things to the New York Times book review. They have the reviews of specific books, but they also have sort of like best of lists, things to look out for, bestsellers. And a lot of these newspapers also at the end of the year will do, best of 2020 lists. And those are usually pretty well regarded as well. So this one is a little more highfalutin, I guess you could say, but the New York Review of Books is also another one that's pretty well regarded. Again, they're kind of a little bit more intellectual. They're probably more likely to review university press books, things like that. They're really talking about literature and art and museums and things like that. But I just thought I'd mention it because they do, they kind of go a little bit deeper and they're a little bit more for that like intellectual reader who really wants to know kind of what like the university presses are coming out with. This is where you'll find reviews for that kind of stuff. New York Times and Washington Post is going to be more of your popular, fiction from the major publishers, that kind of thing. And because we're on Long Island, I thought I mentioned Newsday books. Often as a librarian, you notice that if something gets a good write-up in Newsday, people come in asking for it. So I thought that I would mention that because they do have some sections in their newspaper about their books and what they think is good coming out. They sometimes post links or articles about actually what's been going out at the local libraries a lot. So that's kind of interesting as well. So, you could, especially if you already get it at home, you could take a look for that. And actually in the library, the website version of it is available for free. So then I thought I'd mention this because my dad is a big fan of Bill's books. For some reason, this guy tends to get the kind of stuff that my dad likes pretty well. So I just thought it'd be interesting to mention. This is usually on NBC. This is like a segment that airs on Sundays. So it's Bill Goldstein, and he usually just has about a 2-minute segment where he recommends like 3 or 4 books, and that's about it. But he talks about what he likes about them, and so I mentioned because he tends to do well with my dad. So that's just another one I wanted to throw out there. All right, and then next I wanted to talk websites. So I mean, obviously, what we were just looking at in the last slide, those were websites, but they're traditional media. So they come out in print newsletters or magazines, and of course, those aren't the only ones. I also tend to read things like the New Yorker, the New York Magazine. I like their book recommendations. So pretty much whenever if you're reading a magazine, you probably have book recommendations. Even things like Entertainment Weekly, I think, tend to have good book recommendations. So there are a lot of magazines that are going to have book recommendations for you. But I also wanted to mention websites. So these are websites that are really built specifically to talk about books. One that's kind of a fun one that's kind of trendy is Book Riot, and they kind of have a fun vibe, I would say, maybe a little bit of a younger vibe. But they have a lot of things. Again, they have podcasts, they have a lot of different stuff. But they have a lot of these different kinds of lists. 10 speculative short story collections to enjoy in 2021. And so they'll have stuff and book recommendations and give you a little bit of why they're recommending it. And I just think that it's sort of a different. They're kind of giving you a different thing than the newspapers or the magazines, and they're just kind of celebrating books in general. So it's everything from looking at classic authors, an ode to the paperback book, 15 great spy books for kids who love spy stories, things for kids, things for adults. So they really just have a lot. Often if you'll look up, what are the best fantasy books or something in 2021, usually like a Book Riot article will come up for you. They have a lot of content here. Now, this is a website that I really like. I get I have a digest that they send me every day. And I guess this is also sort of one that is a little bit more like highfalutin, I would say, kind of goes a little bit deeper to more like intellectual stuff, but they have a lot of great content. So, they have really a lot of different stuff, but they'll also have, what the critics are saying about a book. They do this thing where they kind of collect all the other book reviews and kind of sum them up. So they're saying this book has 9 reviews, 4 rave, 3 positive, 1 mixed. And these are kind of quotes from Boston Globe, from NPR, the Washington Post. So they're drawing all of these resources together, which I think sometimes can be really nice, especially if see if it says it here. So you can click on biggest new books, go to the hottest books of the season, and they'll often have a thing with the new books where they're saying these are the best reviewed books of the week here. So 5 reviews you need to read this week, or they'll say this one, the best reviewed books of the week. I like this. So it's saying, this book got 18 rave reviews, 10 positive, 6 mixed. This one got 6 rave, 2 positive. So this is another one just that really is good for the new books that are coming out and keeping on top of that and seeing what people are talking about, what's getting good reviews. And then another one that's kind of similar is The Millions. So this is another one that's been recommended to me that has a lot of different lists and articles about books and just kind of giving you a different perspective. Maybe some interviews with authors, that kind of thing. They also have like top 10 And then I wanted to just mention comic book resources. So I'm a big graphic novel reader. It's a big passion of mine. And this is a good website for reviews about comics, video games, kind of the pop culture aspect of things. But especially when you're talking, graphic novels, it really is one of the better websites to tell you what's coming out and some information about that. Like this is a big graphic novel coming out, the Department of Truth. So it's, kind of a little bit of a preview of it, an interview with the author. So you're not really going to find that much of this in the other places that I've mentioned, although, they have started talking a little bit more about graphic novels, like in the New York Times book review, but, it's not going to be as much as they're dedicating to it on this website. And then I thought I'd just mention Amazon. I mean, obviously, Amazon is Amazon. I don't need to advertise for Amazon. They're making enough money without me. But, they did start as a bookstore, and they do have, their book section on the website, which will give you some information, popular books. You can see best books of 2020. They have their own best books of the month. And even just seeing, the best-selling books, feature new released books, you're going to get a sense if it's a bestseller on Amazon, it's probably one that people are reading. So if you're really just interested in like what's the most popular thing that is happening right now, you can always look on the Amazon website. And then another big trend is the celebrity book club. So another person that doesn't need my promoting them is Oprah. She's got a big enough following, but the Oprah Book Club is the big one that kind of kicked this off, and it's been around for a while. You can see either on directly, they have their own website, the Oprah Book Club, and they'll have their pick there. There's not much listed here. They do the complete list of all the Oprah Book Club picks. There's 86 of them, which she kind of, I think, started this concept of she's reading a book, she's going to talk about it, and I'm inviting you to read along with her. And, usually when she picks a book to be on her book club, it becomes a bestseller, and, people are talking about it. There is also, I thought this was interesting, on Goodreads, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It does have an official, let me get in here. It have an official website for Oprah's Book Club. So I guess, if you're reading it and you want to talk about it here, you can do that. But two other ones.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
The first thing is, I don't know, are you going to, I'm not sure if this applies, but is Libby considered another option?
Yeah, so I thought about including Libby. I guess I thought that Hoopla was a little bit more obvious in their recommendations. I think if you go to Overdrive, and I could check, I don't know if it gives it as much, but there's probably, in a similar way, you could probably, look at ebooks. If we go to available now, there's subjects. So it's a little bit, if you click on biography and autobiography, you're going to see them. But I just don't know if it does it in the same way as well. Where
I understand.
But
I understand.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. But as you can see, they also have, if they, say this book, they also have You May Also Like. So that's something that I was looking.
So that's kind of like suggestion, but I guess it's more algorithmic than curated, right?
I feel like this is more by genre, whereas Hoopla does seem to have a bunch of lists that are kind of in there. They're a little bit hidden, but they're in there if you search by category, which I don't think is.
And the trivial thing, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. The trivial thing is regarding Oprah. I think the most famous thing about Oprah is she promoted a book that was completely made up.
Oh, the with the James Frey, was that the one?
Yeah, yeah, that was
The
funny.
Million Little Pieces, yeah. And I mean, I
He
think
didn't seem
that's
too pleased that he lied about it and that she
no,
had to
she
and
was
that she
not
ended
pleased
up
about that.
promoting it.
And I think that's one of those cases too of, sometimes you can kind of get away with something, and if it's not popular, as soon as people
Yeah,
are paying
you actually get
attention,
away with it, right?
and
But
then
once
you
it
got a
becomes
lot of
popular,
eyes
people
on
start
you,
poking
it's
holes in it.
exactly. Yeah, I mean that was a very interesting thing that happened there, and I'm sure she's probably a lot more careful about what she chooses
By
since
vetting it.
yeah, and vetting it. That's for sure.
But and again, I'm going to leave this is that it's not like it doesn't happen in newspapers. Unfortunately, it's happened a lot. Where again, if it's not paid attention to, the person obviously gets away with it. But once it like becomes a Pulitzer Prize winner, the people are like, wait a second, that didn't really happen. So,
Yeah. Although it's interesting
all
because
right,
even that
sounds good.
that book seemed to still get read. Like it would still be taken out from the
Oh yeah,
library. So it makes you wonder if
if,
people didn't hear about
it,
the hoopla about it, or he actually came
yeah,
out
it
with
might
other
have
books.
actually
He came out with other books afterwards
made it
because
more popular.
what is that? The Streisand effect, I think, it's called, where
Yeah, exactly.
even
Yeah,
if something is
the
kind of infamous, it becomes more famous and more people are interested in it.
yeah,
And
it actually probably made more money.
yeah, and I think technically he came clean, and then he wrote other works which he actually called fiction. I mean, that was the big thing, was just that he's not calling it fiction. He's pretending that
He
it's
should have called it fiction.
a
Yeah,
memoir,
exactly.
exactly. Um, but that's not the first
Okay.
or the last, controversy in book publishing. I'm sure.
No, no, I'm sure it's happened many times that we never know about. So.
Exactly that too.
Well, thank you.
No, no problem. And so the other one I wanted to mention was the Reeses Book Club. This one seems to be a little bit more popular these days. I feel like whenever she picks something, it gets a lot of attention. And so she has this kind of fancier website too, where she's got her own app and all this stuff. Um, but she's also picking a different book. I'm not sure if it's monthly, but um, it looks like it's monthly. It looks like now there's also a YA, a teen pick every month as well. So this is Outlawed, which we saw, again, this one's been getting reviewed a lot and getting a lot of attention. Outlawed by Anna North. So I think there's also it's the Book of the Month Club you can sign up for, and you could actually have it send you, if you're interested, like every one of the picks of one of these celebrity book clubs. And then the other one is the Read with Jenna Bush Hager. So she also started hers, which I think is also getting kind of popular. She actually announced two for February of 2021, Kristen Hanna and Send For Me by Lauren Fox. So, and again, I think there's ways to interact with it online here on the website. So, again, it's just, it kind of depends how you want, how you feel about that. If you're looking for something to social media wise to interact with, or you just kind of want to be part of the conversation, or just if you just trust their picks, if you feel like they're choosing books that you like every time, it's it's like kind of like, well, I trust them, so I'm going to read whatever they say. Okay. So then I just wanted to briefly talk about social media. So the big one is Goodreads. And again, this one is I think was purchased by Amazon a few years ago. Oh, whoops. But what's it has a lot there. So first of all, it is a social media platform in and of itself, right? So you sign up, you make you add your friends that you know in real life, or through the internet, and you see what they're reading, you see what they're rating books, and you comment and like what they're doing, and that part of it is fun. And there's also every year they do the they kind of get you to do a reading challenge. So you try and say, okay, I want to read 50 books this year, and you see, oh, my friend Tom is wants to read 60 books. You know what? I'm going to do 60 books. And you kind of have like almost like a little bit of a competition there going. And, that's kind of one of the fun things to see who can kind of get to their reading goal for the year. They also do this, Goodreads Choice Awards, where you kind of vote on what you liked. But they also just have, again, like have these Goodreads Choice Awards, things like that, where there's lists. And that's kind of what is most interesting for what we're talking about. So like this is their best fiction list, and this is what Goodreads people voted on, and this was the winner, The Midnight Library, which was, very well received. But you can look at your books if you're adding them, if you signed up. But even if you're just kind of browsing, again, they have recommendations. It's really trying to get me to sign in here. But you could browse recommendations. You can also look at the new releases, look by genre. Is it going to let me pass this sign-in stage? No, okay. So, if you're looking at science fiction, here's new releases with the tag science fiction. There's related genres. There's giveaways, which you can always enter, and sometimes you get free books sent to you. And then they also have some data like most read this week. They're basing on the data that the users are giving them. There's groups that you can join that, where people are commenting and talking about books. So that's another way to kind of get involved. Users themselves create lists, new speculative fiction stars, best paranormal fantasy sci-fi books. People are always creating lists and seeing how many votes they get. You might find something that you're interested in. And then, sometimes it's also just a matter of, if you look at the actual book, the site for a book, so say take Dune #1. You also have this readers also enjoyed. So you can see similar books. And that's kind of similar to NoveList, that it's, kind of books that are similar. And then there's a reader Q&A, some popular answered questions about this book. There's other lists. So, again, say you're like, I like this book, I want to try and find other stuff like it. Well, maybe it's because you want to read other classic sci-fi and fantasy books, and then you see this list with this book on it and you want to read it. And then here's where you have your user reviews. So people are giving it their reviews, saying that they loved it, they hated it, and why. And you can also look at quotes. There's kind of like the most highlighted quotes from people who are using their Kindle. It kind of tracks their highlights. And so that's it. You could also, one of the things that's actually good for Goodreads is looking at series. So it says other books in the series. So it kind of has this part here where it says the Dune series gives you a book 1, book 2, book 3. Sometimes that can be confusing, trying to figure out in a long series what the order of reading the books is. And Goodreads is pretty good at that, at finding that. And you see even here, even instead of related books, it has related series. So that's about it. Again, if you want to really get in there, you have to sign in, you have to create an account. But there's definitely some that you can look at just by kind of poking around the website. There's this ask the author thing. Sometimes they get the author, and they're gonna basically, people can ask them questions and they'll answer it. So these are some popular answered questions here that are might be of interest to you. And then I wanted to mention this concept of BookTube and Bookstagram. What's BookTube? So I just put some articles here, which I'm not going to read from there, but basically the idea is it's on YouTube. There's sort of like a subgenre of YouTubers that are obsessed with books. And so they, maybe have a channel where all they talk about is books, so they're maybe showing off their book haul, which is one of the concepts of, I went to the bookstore and I bought 10 books here, and I'm showing them off, but it might be that they're reviewing books, or maybe they're just talking about, kind of the controversies and other things that are happening that are book related. and so this whole community is kind of called BookTube. And if you're really interested in it, there's articles about it that'll kind of, show you, famous ones. Like, this is just an example. This is one of the ones that's featured in this article. So you see, she has this whole site, and she's talking about books. Maybe she's reading a certain series. She's talking about herself. And obviously, this is kind of like the influencer economy of, people are trying to make money through, and maybe even make this their job. Although the one thing to be aware of with this kind of social media influencer economy, sometimes they're being paid to promote something. So yeah, they're probably not getting paid by Harry Potter to promote something, but if they're big enough, an author or publisher might be sending them stuff for free, saying, "Can you talk about this? We'll pay you if you talk about this on your site." So there is a little bit of that to be aware of, but it's sort of more personality driven, and some people really like that. So I just thought I'd mention that. And on Instagram, it's a similar thing. It's called Bookstagram. There's tags and hashtags on Instagram. Like Bookstagram is one of the big ones. So you can just look up the hashtag Bookstagram on Instagram and follow it, and you'll be getting stuff in your feed. But then like, for example, this Oprah's magazine is saying there's 14 book Instagrams to follow if you love reading. And so some of them are like New York Times books, which obviously is, like we talked about, sort of just the Instagram page for this newspaper section. But they do a good job in and of themselves. If you look at their Instagram, there's just a lot that they're doing. So you could look at their site, and they're kind of doing some more visual content, but maybe some links to their site, but it's a little different. They might have some news that they're posting. This kind of post where it's like trying to just make a picture of the book, but kind of make it look nice in a certain way, like this one, or this, just your coffee and the book, and kind of get you excited about reading. So that's a whole other sort of subgenre of social media is, BookTube and Bookstagram. So I thought I'd just mention those. And then the original Readers Advisory Service, librarians. So if you go to the Merrick Library and you walk into our lobby, there's a lot of staff picks there, and those are chosen by librarians. And we have like books of kind of past staff picks. And, you can always come to us at the reference desk and ask us. And, you can ask us what we're interested in, or you could ask, I think that's one of the misconceptions sometimes people have, is that you don't have to just ask. You might think, you look at me and you say, I'm sure this kid doesn't look like he reads the same stuff as me, but I might be able to find you something similar to what you're interested in. That's part of what our job is. So, but at the same time, you might realize that we have reading habits in common, and maybe you like the same stuff I have. You could ask me what I've enjoyed, and I might be able to give you something good too. So kind of don't be afraid to ask us. That's one of the things that we honestly enjoy the most at the reference desk, is when people actually ask us about books. So don't be shy. But I thought I'd also mention, we have our librarian Carol Ann does a great job. She does a lot of our book clubs, and she has a podcast called the Top Shelf Podcast. So you can get this on your podcatcher app on your phone. You can also do it through the website, and you can listen to her interviews. So she's getting all these great authors. I mean, Shangri Lee right now is one of the most popular right now with this My Year Abroad book, getting tons of reviews, tons of attention, and somehow she's out there really trying to get these authors on, and she really does a great job with this. So that's one way you could find books to read, or more, again, just more information about books, more access to authors, that kind of thing, is by our Merrick Library podcast, which is called Top Shelf. The other local things, think about is the New York Public Library. So New York Public Library has something called Shelf Help, which is kind of cute, and they have a personalized book selection service. So if you have a New York Public Library card, which a lot of people don't realize, if you're a New York State resident, you can get a New York Public Library card. And you can also tell them, you basically fill out this form where you tell them about your reading interests, and they're going to look at it and they can recommend you books. And they also have their podcast, which is called The Librarian Is In. So they have a podcast, and they also go on, I think it's Facebook Live, and they sometimes do a thing where they kind of take people's questions live and try to recommend books, and that's kind of fun as well. And then, like I said, Ask a Librarian. That is, we're kind of the original readers advisory service, and we might be using some of these services to find out. But part of it is that in our jobs also, just as when we're ordering books and that kind of thing, we read a lot of the reviews. So we kind of, as time goes on, we get a sense of what sounds like it's going to be popular. We know this author is a big author and they have a new one coming out. So we just kind of tend to have that awareness of what's going on in the book industry that helps us to recommend books to you, hopefully. So don't forget about us. And that's it. So if you have any questions, you can always email me at jfire@merricklibrary.org. I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions. And if you have any questions right now, let me know.
I want to thank you very much. There was a lot of new information for me.
Great.
So yeah, it was really good. I think I should let you know too, I'm a library board trustee, so it's nice to meet you.
Oh, hi, nice to meet you too. I'm glad you could join and that you learned something. That's great.
No, actually I did. I learned quite a lot. You think but you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it was very helpful. I wish you'd had better attendance. I'm going to try to talk to more people about enjoying these programs the library is doing.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's always tough. This is a relatively new program, and it sometimes takes some time to get things off the ground. But hopefully at some point we'll be getting some better attendance.
Well, it's great, and thank you again. Thank you for the time.
Thanks so much.
Josh?
Yeah.
What about magazines? Any of the library's tools let you access or download magazines? I know they used to. Some years ago, I used to have something on my iPad from the library. I can't remember what it is though.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And we do have access to magazines. They actually just changed it over. It used to be through a service called RB Digital, and they recently actually changed it over to Overdrive. I think honestly, this is one of those situations where there's all these corporate mergers and stuff like that, and I think somehow Overdrive bought them out or something like that. So now it all comes under here. But are you familiar with Overdrive? It's like the app is Libby.
I love Libby. I use Libby on my phone all the time for books and audio books.
So it's the same thing. It's the same account, and you can do this through your phone, although it might be a little difficult to read some of these magazines through your phone. So you can also do it like through a tablet or through your computer. So I'm on the website portion of it, but you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So now right at the top here, it says magazines. And so the thing to know about this is that it doesn't interfere with your other checkouts. If you have a limited number of checkouts, the magazines don't count towards them. And you basically have unlimited checkouts for magazines. But, if you go and click on magazines here, you have the most current issues and back issues of lots of magazines. So, you can check them out, borrow it. You get it for 21 days, although, you could keep, there's no checkout limit. So you could kind of recheck it out after 21 days if you'd like. And this is kind of how it looks. And you could kind of browse it like this. So it's just not a separate app now. It's part of Libby, so part of Overdrive. So, you should check it out, see if you can get it to work on your phone. If not, I don't know if you have a tablet or something like that, but you might have better luck reading it through the tablet. But
yeah, I'd like to be able, I don't see it on the phone app. I've been using the phone app through the whole pandemic. Since, you closed up, I went to the phone app and I don't see it there, but I'd rather have it on a tablet anyway. Like you said, they're a lot easier to see. Magazines are kind of big. And spread out. So on a tablet, would I still go through the Libby app, or is a
Yeah,
separate?
like, I'm looking at the Libby app right now. I have it on my phone. This is very new. They just transferred these over like a week or two ago.
Okay,
So you wouldn't have noticed it unless you happen to be looking, the last week or so. But yeah, if you go into the Libby app and you're looking like as though you were searching for a new book, it should be up there at the top. You click on magazines and you could check them out from there. But, and then again, you might want to open it up on your tablet or something, but
there they are.
yeah. Oh, great. So,
So I'll just put Libby on the tablet too.
yeah, that's what I would do. And then, sign into the same account, you'll have them on both and hopefully it looks good. Again, this is kind of new, so I was just playing around with it a little bit, but hopefully it works for you that way.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's hubby wants to read the magazines on the tablet, so
Yeah. Okay, great.
that would be very, very helpful.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great talk as always.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I think I've attended all but one of yours.
Yeah,
I
I think so.
I
You're a
don't
number one fan.
even, yeah, I love them.
I really appreciate that.
Not a problem. I think they're great. I want there to be more of them too.
Great. Yeah, I mean, and so the next one we're doing is about how to learn a new language. So I'm going to go over some of the software we have through the library. That's like language learning software. And then other than that, I'm going to actually be starting some other programs. So I'll be doing actually a nonfiction book club and a virtual film discussion. So I'm going to also add those into the rotation. So maybe we'll see you at those too.
Okay, great.
Thanks again. So
Thank you.
any other questions or we'll leave it there for today?
And we're good.
All right. Thanks
Thanks
again.
again. Mhm.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Josh.
Stay
Bye.
well. Stay
Bye.
well. Bye.